When your purpose is to help people, but the storms that come into your life make you focus on yourself, those two things don't go together. They contradict, and that's a problem. We're going to talk about it next. Scott Hanis on Purpose Under Pressure. Hello, friends, and welcome to Purpose Under Pressure, sharing stories of purpose and the storms that can rise and kind of get in our way and try to knock us off our path. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by the Ruby Group, Sandler Training in Akron, serving business and sales leaders across Ohio and in Florida, and with sales and leadership training. So they're a great group. You can check them out if you need some help with your business and your sales efforts. I'm Brian Lefelock. I'm glad you're here. Our guest today is Scott Hanis. He is the president and founder of Fortitude HR Solutions in Strongsville, Ohio. And Scott has about as much purpose and about as much proof of purpose as you're going to find, and we're going to talk about that story in just a little bit. Scott, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate
it. Glad you're here, and I'm glad to have met you a little while ago, and I know you were going through some storms and some pressure of your own, and I think we might talk about that in a little bit. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Fortitude HR Solutions. What's good, what's happening great, and how are we weathering that storm today?
Yeah, so again, thank you very much for having me on, and anybody that's listening. So I own a company called Fortitude HR Solutions. We do have two different main divisions of our organization. We do HR consulting, business consulting, helping clients put in structure from a business standpoint, core values, goals, objectives. How do you grow your business from doing $1 million a year to $10 million a year? Just the growth trajectory that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they're really good at their niche, but they don't have all that foundational stuff in place. So we work a lot with that with our clients. And then also executive coaching, and again, trying to get out of your own way, right? Like a lot of business owners are great, again, at their niche, but they spend too much time in the business and not working on the business. And that's kind of where we come in to help out on the consulting side. And then the other division, we do full service recruiting of W-2 team members all across the United States. Anything from like an office assistant all the way to a CEO we've worked on. So just we want to help people. We want to add value. That's what we're all about at Fortitude HR Solutions.
Yeah, and so you're working with people here locally in Ohio and across the country. And I'm wondering, how long ago did you start the company? And is the company based on a specific purpose, or is that purpose also yours? Let's talk a little bit about why you do what you do.
Absolutely. We started June 24th of 2019. It's also the wedding anniversary for me and my wife, so I'll never forget the start date. But I've been very fortunate and blessed to be able to help a lot of people in the 3.5 years we've been in business. So I absolutely love what we do. As far as purpose, for me, it's all about making an impact and helping other people. I kind of have a personal motto. If I can help one person each day, like I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. If I wasn't owning a business and making a difference this way in people's lives, I definitely would be working for a church doing youth ministry. I'm very passionate about that. I volunteered for the last 18 years doing youth ministry at my church.
So how does that purpose, that individual purpose, you're working with the kids, which is God's work. We all should work to help our future grow. But you also own an HR company. How does does your purpose to help people come through the HR company? Was that the goal of it, or what's that individual approach that kind of ties all of your activities together?
Yeah, I mean, to me, again, I am a faith-filled person, so my personal belief is in God and Jesus, and being able to help people along their journey. Even in the corporate world, we had roughly 1,200 people at one of the organizations that I was responsible for under my scope of influence. And I've always enjoyed the personal relationships with people. And I've had employees or team members come in and say, hey, like my wife just got diagnosed with cancer. Or, I had a really crazy story where I had an employee that said, hey, Scott, like I'm going to go kill myself. And, not that I did anything. I believe like God worked through me, but I was able to help save someone's life that day. And so just being able to treat people the way I want to be treated, like treat them like a human being. Like at the end of the day, human resources is all about people, right? I mean, they are your most valuable. I hate the word asset because they're a person, but they're the most valuable thing in your business, right? If you're building a team and you're looking to grow, the way you treat your people and the way that they're willing to kind of work with you and work for you, like that's what's going to make or break your organization. You can have all the profit you want, you can have all the systems and processes, but you need people that understand your vision and your culture and what you're all about, that want to join you in kind of building something, and they understand where that goal is, and they understand your vision, and they understand your culture. So to me, that's kind of where my purpose and my faith comes, into play. And again, just because I'm in HR, it's kind of taboo, right? Because we live in a very politically correct world. And so I got to be really careful how I approach things, or, what I say, because it's not like I have freedom of speech anymore, especially in the world we live in. So, when someone would come to me and say, "Hey, Scott, like, I'm dealing with this," and I could tell they were upset. I always had an open door policy. I still do with my clients. And, people come and they'll tell me what's going on in their life. And I have two big ears, and they kind of stick out. So I try to do a lot of listening and just kind of empathizing, with them and their situation. I don't know what they're going through, but I've also had my fair share of challenges and fun in my life. And because of that, I feel like it makes me a better leader and a better, person. And because of that, it's allowed me to, I think, be very successful in my career. And so, even though I'd love to work for the church and help, the church, full time, the church just doesn't pay enough to be able to provide for my family, my wife and my son, right. And to be able to give back the way I am able to give back to, because I do a lot of pro bono work for some schools and churches, and I try to help people as much as I can. So that to me is really my purpose, is giving back and helping other people. Obviously, I own a business because of the ability to make money and to provide for my family. Right. So that's one component of it. Growing up, my dad lost his job 3 different times, and my dad's an extremely hard worker, and I've learned so much from him, and just blessed with a great role model and just a father figure in my life. And I know not everybody has that. And so I'm very fortunate. And I always think about that, maybe this person didn't have a good upbringing, or maybe they, everybody's got stuff that goes on in their life, whether it's personally, professionally. And everybody says it, in the corporate world, don't bring your personal life into the professional world. Well, guess what? We're human beings, right? And so this always happens. And I think at the end of the day, again, I'm going to use my God-given skills and talents and abilities to help people. But at the end of the day, again, it gives me a lot of gratification, and I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in my life.
I'll share very quickly. I'm a deacon at our church, and one of the things that we try to do is with the church body, they all have God-given gifts and passions and drives and tools and skills that they've been given. And to be able to take them into the marketplace, into the workforce, and to be able to share those gifts with others, even while you're working, is an amazing ministry. And we don't always think about that. So congratulations on being able to kind of swing your feet up out of bed in the morning and put them on the floor. And even though some people might think HR as being just numbers and benefits and emails that have to go out to everybody, you're making purpose, and you're taking care of people, even amidst something that maybe people don't think they can make a difference in. And so let's talk about that a little bit. So you're running a business, and it's HR, and it's purpose-driven. Storms come, knock you off your path a little bit. I'm interested in where things can go wrong, where things can be a trial for you, and kind of what you have to overcome to keep purpose alive at Fortitude.
Great question. I think there's 2 main areas I'd like to talk about, Brian. Number one, I hate the word balance, because I kind of have a work balance still, because what I do, I don't feel is work. I feel like, it's kind of a ministry, and I also feel like it's a way I'm helping people. So I absolutely love what I do. Like, people hear human resources, and I think of Toby, maybe from The Office, and they think of these boring people that, again, are, paper pushers, or they only care about what the company wants. I think great HR professionals balance the employee and the team member and the company's needs, right? And they find the common ground in the middle in order to make things happen. So the time aspect for me is probably the biggest, one of the biggest things, like with pressure, because I'll take a phone call at 10 o'clock at night if someone's struggling, or I'll answer an email late at night. And so, like, there's really no on-off switch. Like, I'm always on, and I think, I've sacrificed a lot in my career with family time, missing birthdays and wedding anniversaries. And, it's my son, like, we have a 15-year-old son. I miss some of his sporting events, because of work. And, I'll be out of town, and there's nothing I can do about it. But, I've tried to figure out, a little bit better balance in the last 3.5 years as an entrepreneur and a business owner myself. Like, the nice thing is I can take time out of my schedule now and say, okay, I can't do a meeting between 5 and 7 because I got to go to my son's basketball game. But I can be available afterwards and before, and I'll work later in the evening or at night if I need to kind of make up things. I think, too, when you own a business, people have lost, unfortunately, the service component, right? And I'm a huge believer in servant leadership. And so if I say something, I better do it, right?
Yep.
So it's like leading by example and going through that whole thing. And again, I love the title of your podcast about, having purpose. It kind of goes back to what Simon Sinek talks about, like starting with your why. Like, what's your why, and what are you doing, and are you being intentional, and how does that all relate back to kind of your overall purpose and mission of your personal life? So again, I absolutely love that, Brian. So the time aspect's one thing that's been a challenge for me because, even though like in the corporate world, I'd work 80, 100 hours a week. I'll never forget my 10-year wedding anniversary with my wife. The day before, we were supposed to go to Giravasi Winery. I had a weekend plan for us, and I got a call on Friday morning from my boss that was over in India and said, hey, we want you and Kevin and our Darren, our director of finance. Kevin was our president, and we want you all to be in London tomorrow morning. So instead of celebrating my 10-year wedding anniversary, I got to fly to London the next morning so I could be in London for work. So again, and my wife and my son have been very gracious. They understand kind of, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it to provide for our family. Because, my dad unfortunately lost his job 3 different times growing up as a kid. And, the financial burden has always been a big part of my life and kind of my proof. I'm getting very personal. And then, when the third time my dad lost his job, I was 14 and I was working for somebody and I was actually abused by that person. And so I think I have an internal drive to always want to do really well in work because it gives me purpose and value, personally. And so because of that, I feel like I can't let anybody down, including myself. So I will continue to push and drive, sometimes at the expense of, relationships and family time. But I think in the last 3.5 years, I've done a much better job of trying to find that balance and spending time. The other thing, Brian, the other major talking point here would probably be my health. So in June of 2021, I ended up being diagnosed with COVID. I thought I was doing pretty well. And then June 16th of 2021, I was doing Zoom meetings for a client that I was supposed to be in person with in Washington, D.C. And a client said, hey, you just got over COVID. Let's move everything virtually. So it was 1:30 p.m. on June 16th of 2021. And I come downstairs, I had a half-hour break, and I start feeling like low, sharp back pain, like someone stabbing me. And went upstairs at 2 o'clock. I was having a hard time seeing. My legs started throbbing and swelling, and cut the meeting off after about 20 minutes. So it's 1:50, and I look at my legs, and my legs are swollen like tree trunks. Okay. And they're black and blue, and I can't feel anything, from my waist down.
Sandler rule, only decision makers can get other people to make decisions. Each and every day, we have a decision to make. Also, when we're with buyers in our sales process, we have a decision to make how we're going to lead that interaction. And if I'm somebody that can make daily commitments and keep those daily commitments, then when I'm with buyers, I expect them to make commitments and keep those commitments to me throughout that sales process. So first and foremost, I have to have a decided heart in order to lead other people to make the decisions that I'm expecting them to make.
So I'm obviously freaking out. Called my wife, who was downstairs. We ended up calling 911, and the ambulance took me to Southwest Hospital. And thought I was having a stroke because I was having blurred vision, and my right arm was a little numb. Here, my blood pressure was 65/44. My heart rate resting was 150 something. And they did the stroke test in the ambulance on the way to Southwest. Couldn't figure out what was wrong. I wasn't having a stroke. Ran all these tests on me. Here I ended up having blood clots from my toes to my inferior vena cava, which is the main artery that goes to your heart. Wow. And the only reason why I'm still here, Brian, is that my inferior vena cava splits off into 2 instead of being a straight line. So that's the only reason why I had blood still circulating in my body.
Is that a difference than other people? You were just made different.
I was made differently.
Okay.
Yeah, so most people have just a straight line for your inferior vena cava. Mine splits off a little bit, so it allowed blood to still flow to the heart.
And that allowed you to live.
Yep. So then I ended up having to have emergency double thrombectomy surgery where they cut behind your knees and they take out blood clots through a catheter. And then I was on blood thinners, and then I've had a whole host of other medical issues with finding out I only have one kidney that functions. My one kidney is small and atrophied and doesn't work. So I have like a nephrologist now that I never thought I'd have, and ended up having double COVID pneumonia on top of all that. They were surprised I wasn't intubated. By
That
the
was
time
all
I
while
got-
you had COVID?
This was after I thought
Just
it beat
after?
COVID. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, gotcha.
some complications from that. And my mom's had 2 strokes, and so I think there's some blood, disorders within the family. So now I get to take, blood thinner every day, and then I've had some heart issues where my heart, sitting here resting would have been like in the 120s, 130s. So then I see a cardiologist now. I've done all these like tests, EKGs, echocardiograms, and now I'm on this medicine to help lower the heart rate. And so it's been a challenge. I have gout, and so not being able to walk when I get a gout flare up, all these different things. And so it's been a long journey. And the reason why I share all that is that even through all those like personal health challenges, my clients were very understanding because of the relationships we have. I only had one client that said, "Hey, Scott, like we're not going to work with you." But then it was also a challenge because we hired our first W-2 internal team member that wasn't my wife or myself. And unfortunately, that person left during that time. And so because of that, we had a 3-month period where we kind of had to pick up the pieces, and I don't blame that person at all. Obviously there was talk about me not making it, right? And so in the ICU that I may not be alive, and they may have to cut off my legs and amputate because I had something called PCD. And so a lot of like transition and change that kind of forced me into the position where I'm at now. And through the grace of God, I'm still here, and I have a second chance. And so being able to, want to give back and do more, that's why I do what I do. Again, that really drives me, that fuels who I am. And so if I can make a difference in one person's life, like I feel like I'm doing not only the work of Fortitude HR Solutions, but also God's work at the same time. So again, this is way more personal than I've shared on any podcast, Brian, but I think, again, your title of your show and just, again, getting to know you over the last year or so, I think this is the right, appropriate time for me to share this. And then on top of all that, going through and then now finding time because my wife looked at me back in May and said, like a little bit teary-eyed, like, Scott, like you got to do something because I wasn't taking care of myself, and my health really had gotten out of control, and I was up to about 270 pounds in May. I'm happy to report to you and anybody that's watching, and hopefully I'm adding some value here, is that I'm at 216 pounds right now. So I've lost 54 pounds, but it hasn't been easy because I have had to, learn how to like work out again. Like before I would work out, I'd walk, I'd do cardio, I might jog, and then I would also lift weights. And because of my elevated heart rate, I have to be careful that my heart rate doesn't go above a certain number. So I have to wear a Fitbit tracker and kind of keep track of that. And so I'm doing it in a modified way, which is not my personality at all, Brian. My personality is very much like I'm all or nothing. And if you know me, like I don't understand the word moderation. I also don't understand patience because at the end of the day, like I want, again, like I've been there where like I was on the brink of death, and like I want people to like live life to the fullest and like enjoy each day. And like I'm not saying I'm perfect. I have a lot of bad days too. No one's perfect, but at the end of the day, like I try to really kind of take that and take charge of that in my life. Yeah. And so that's been a challenge too. Like again, going back to the balance, right? Like how do I find time to walk an hour each day in conjunction of taking care of our clients, and then we have W-2 team members that are outside of our family. So we have a recruiting and sales manager, a full-time recruiter. We have 3 other people that help with recruiting on a 1099 basis. Our son's on our team now helping with some of the marketing, and my wife's the CFO and co-owner of the business. So how can I be present for them? And again, like I think it goes back to you can't give what you don't have. And so again, like understanding all of those things. And there's different pillars they talk about in business about, like your fitness and your family and your financial and spiritual and all those different pillars and what matters and how do you do all those things. And again, like I've always been one of those people, Brian, that kind of stinks at one of those pillars or sometimes multiple pillars. Like I'm really, really good at this one, but I struggle at these 4, Yep. And so again, trying to find that's been the real challenge with pressure under purpose. So it's way more than you wanted me to share, but
no, actually you just nailed it. You just said pressure under purpose, which is backwards. Mm-hmm. But that's what you've been living, brother. It's like, Sorry. Man, no. You I think that was a God-given thing because you have talked about a lot of pressure. a lot of pressure, talking about the fact that time is an issue, the fact that you feel like you need to take care of others far more than anything else, even at expense. And I think some listeners are out there thinking back to the time management thing, going, man, Scott, you can't miss your kids' games. Man, Scott, you got to go to be with your wife. Man, you can't do this stuff, Scott. You're out of whack, right? And you were actually kind of, look, that's just me. This is a purpose. So my question is, when you're going through all those storms and you have to focus on yourself, but you're thinking of the business and you're thinking of helping other people, your purpose is actually against what you need to do right now. Isn't that right? Your purpose is helping others, and yet you're the one in bed. How did you handle that? Because that is, I mean, when your purpose is what drives you, well, now this isn't about you now, but it is, right? So how do you make that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been very fortunate, again, to be raised with parents that my mom and dad both have had amazing work ethics. And so, like, I'll outwork most people, right? And again, at the expense of a lot of other things. And I think some of it comes down to communication. Some of it comes down to compromise. Again, the last 3.5 years, and especially the last 6 months, I think you met Dennis. So Dennis is our recruiting and sales manager. Dennis has been just an incredible add to the team and somebody I just have a lot of admiration and respect for. He leads our recruiting division. I don't get involved in recruiting as much anymore. So that's allowed me to have more time to spend with my family, and my wife just had back surgery, about 8 weeks ago. So like she was in a lot of pain starting on June 20th this year. So being able to help out around the house more, I was able to do that and, spend time with her and run our son around because he's, again, was playing basketball and running cross country for his school. And so, that allowed me to, again, have more time freedom that, prior to me adding the team members, I know what I need to do. Like I coach and I teach people about this, and I'm putting it into practice. Again, I don't want people can look at me and say, Scott, you're living like a fraud life, right? But I'm actually taking steps. Like we put Dennis in place. We hired Jake, who's another full-time recruiter. We have 3 other recruiters that help us. And I'm involved in recruiting a very little than I used to be. Like before this, you could look at me like, Scott, what are you doing? But I feel like I've managed it to the best of my abilities given all the circumstances that have happened. And I think as business owners and entrepreneurs, we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace and we need to be a little bit patient with ourselves because, again, I'm used to working with 1,200 employees and having big teams and, going from that big team structure where I had, 10 direct reports and another 30 indirect. We were able to accomplish a lot, and now we were able to impact the business and really move the needle really quickly. And I know if I want to grow and continue to help other people, like I have to add more team members. So we're working on that. And like my wife and Dennis and I, like our leadership team at Fortitude HR Solutions, we're going to have a planning meeting here in December to talk about fiscal year 23 goals. And we've already talked about when do we bring on another full-time recruiter and when do we bring on another, consultant, to help on the consulting side of the business because, a lot of that does fall on me right now. And again, like if you're building a business and you really want it to be sustainable and, I think any entrepreneur or business owner needs to look at what's your exit strategy and where are you going, where are you taking the business? And if something would have happened to me, we didn't have all that structure in place. Now I feel really good if something happens to me, because each day is not guaranteed, right? Each day is a gift. And so if I can take that, and again, my team can survive and take the business without me, and my wife is co-owner, she can run it, and like Dennis knows the recruiting side. I just need to backfill myself, which is the next hire that we need to make besides another recruiter. So we're working on that. It's kind of the who to do the how. It's a great book, and I always get the guy's first name wrong. It's either Jack or Dan Sullivan, but it's a great book to take a look at. Again, when you talk about like outsourcing, because I don't need to have it all figured out. Again, like I put a lot of pressure on myself because that's who I am. But at the same token, like I know there's other people that can do it better than me. And so I'm surrounding myself with those right people. We've been very blessed and fortunate. Again, June 24th of 19, we already had like 3 clients ready to go. Yeah. So we weren't like in this huge ramp up period. Like we've had this trajectory like this, and the trajectory went like this. And then in June of last year, it went like this a little because I was turning away work and I stopped doing things, but now we're back on the upward swing. So again, that's not very common, I think, with a lot of entrepreneurs, but again, because of some of those things and because of my work ethic and because of the fact that, again, I don't even know why I'm sharing this again, but the fact that I was abused by a boss when I was 13 or 14 years old, I think it's made me a better person, and it's allowed me to be empathetic, and it's allowed me to like want to outwork people. Sometimes that can be a bad thing or a negative thing, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to let myself or our team fail. I'm going to do whatever I can, be that servant leader, give them whatever tools, resources they need to be successful. And I feel that's my job as the, the president and the, owner of Fortitude HR Solutions.
And I want to try to summarize it for you just a little bit. The thing that
please do.
Is that you've taken this storm that is not going to stop, whether it's your health issues, whether it's the business, whether it's time, whether it's issues from your past. Like, there's this pressure that's driving you. But instead of switching your purpose to take care of all the things that everybody thinks they ought to be taken care of, you've actually built, you've reached out and grabbed reinforcements to allow you to maintain your purpose of helping others. You've stepped out of those storms so that you can continue on with that purpose. And I'm reminded of an analogy when you're on the plane and they tell you to put the masks on first, so that you can help others. And you didn't fall back into yourself, and you didn't fall back into serving the way other people thought you should. You kept saying, no, I'm going to help people, but we're going to figure it out this way. And that's not always easy to do. Sometimes people do what other people want them to do. And that's not you. You stuck to your purpose. So as we wrap up, can you share with me, with all of those health concerns seemingly behind you, but maybe more still going on, you're still overcoming some things, what's next for Fortitude, and where are you going to have to make sure you're focused so that your purpose continues to shine through? What's the next hurdle that maybe you're going to have to overcome moving forward?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, adding additional team members and building out our internal team. Yeah, which is, again, we live in a fun world for recruiting, and we do this all the time, right? Again, I just want to help, and I'm extremely grateful. And I think that's probably the best way to sum it up.
And I appreciate your vulnerability, and I appreciate your sharing the story, because I think, Scott, you say you're marketing is just messaging and telling a story. And when you're able to be vulnerable and you're able to tell a story, and that story includes the storms that you've weathered, it lets me understand that you're the kind of person that's been there, seen that, didn't fold under pressure, and actually came out the other side a better man. And you're the kind of person that I would want to work with as well. And I think that's, they talk about advertising and things. That's not that. This is who you are, and you're sharing it with others. And I think that's the way you run your business. So, folks, if you want to reach out to a guy like Scott, I hope that you will, and if he's somebody that maybe you'd like to work with in your business, or if you just want to talk to gain inspiration to overcome some things, I know he won't mind. Scott, how would they find you if they wanted to talk with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Scott Hanis, Hanis. Company name is Fortitude HR Solutions. You can reach out there if you go to our website, www.fortitudehrsolutions.com. I know it's a long website, but there's a contact us there. And again, if there's anything I can do to offer help or just be a resource for people, that's what I'm here for. But I truly love what we do. And again, we do this obviously, to provide for our families and to, so it is still a business. But at the end of the day, my purpose is to help people. So,
Scott, that's what this entire show is about: inspiring people who are going through things that no one knows, to go through them and stick to their purpose. Thank you very much for sharing your short story. I really appreciate it. We can't do this without folks like you willing to be vulnerable and helping others that are going through similar or different or the same type of storms. So thank you, Scott Hanis from Fortitude HR. Really appreciate your being on Purpose Under Pressure.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Brian, as well. Appreciate you.
Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by Sandler Sales Training by the Ruby Group. Visit therubygroupsandler.com. In this pressure-packed sales world, they're going to shine some light on the purpose. So that is Sandler Training and the Ruby Group. Check out Brian Media Strategies for more Purpose Under Pressure episodes. And if you want to talk to me about anything at all, you can find me there as well. I am Brian Leflock. This is Purpose Under Pressure. We do this every week, and we'll do it again next week. Until then, let's turn it up.